Hello and welcome to Magic is Real, the podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical and spiritual. I am your host, Shannon Torrance. Thank you so much for being here. It would mean the world to me if you would like, subscribe, and leave comments underneath if this video resonates with you. It can even just be a little heart. It really helps so much to support the podcast for free and get this out to more people. So I really appreciate your cooperation and your support there. Today I have with me Riya Loveguard. And hi, Riya. I'm going to read her
Hello.
bio. Thank you so much for being here. Riya Loveguard, or as her guides call her, Riya, is an energy worker whose purpose on Earth is to activate and lead starseeds, light workers, healers, creatives, and conscious entrepreneurs through the bridge of their divine mission into full alignment with their soul's purpose. Riya is using the modality of galactic sound technology and has been nicknamed Galactic Linguist since she can speak multiple extraterrestrial light languages such as Andromedan, Arcturian, Lyran, Avian, and Feline, Syrian, and Pleiadian, as well as the languages of ancient civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Ria has also gained the mastery to decipher other people's light language origins just by listening to audio samples. She regularly conducts light language activations to awaken the ability to speak light languages in her students. Ria's light language transmissions encompass powerful and expansive galactic frequencies that holistically unleash your full divine potential and empower you as you navigate this 3D reality. Thank you, Ria, so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the invite.
It's such a pleasure. So, I'm going to start first of all by asking about what it is that you do. I know I just read a bio, but I'd love for you to elaborate on what is light language? What
Yeah,
is it?
I let me explain in human
Yeah.
simple terms because you know what? I think I need to rewrite this bio to something more simple. I was just actually giving a 5D marketing and copywriting class to my students, and one of the things I said to them, do it simple. What does it actually mean? Because we in the spiritual realm and the spiritual community can sometimes really get into this ascension glossary and sophisticated terms. So let's make things simple. So what is light language? What do I do? So basically, light language is channeling energy in the form of sound. That's as simple as we can put it. Transmitting energy in a form of sound. Uh, at least that's how I use light language. Now, there are people who can write and channel energy in which looks like an alphabet in a written form. This is not my bag. I'm more into various audio renditions of light language. But the simplest, most, I think, accurate definition I came up with it myself is just basically channeling energy in the form of sound. Not that different to when people do Reiki. They also channel energy, but I do it in an audible form.
Ria, I'm so glad you explained that. You are the first person I've had on the podcast in all these years, whose focus is light language. For me, it's always seemed so esoteric, a little strange. Not that I don't believe in it, because I talk to dead people for a living and I interview near-death experiencers, but it always seems a little cuckoo to me. And so I wanted to have you on because you are very grounded. And the way that you explain that makes perfect sense. It feels a lot less inaccessible, the way that you're explaining it.
Because in effect it is very accessible, and I think the problem we've had in the spiritual community, and the problem I've been trying to resolve since I've kind of awakened to my mission, is to bring this mysterious mystical modality down to earth. Because I feel like very often those, let's say, magical abilities such as light language can also be used as a little bit of a tool to feed the spiritual ego, because some people would almost exude this, that this is some tool to the ascended or only reserved for chosen people who have gone on some special path. I actually try to demystify it and show it's accessible to everybody. It's actually your most natural expression. And dare I say, many babies speak light language before the grown ups tell them to stop using that made up language. So it is a very down to earth modality. But yes, it sounds a little bit out there.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, and I love that you can acknowledge that too, because I think that does make it more accessible. So I would love to know how you found light language, how you what your spiritual journey has been, and how this work came to be for you.
So my first light language activated when I was in my early 20s, and I'm now in my late 30s. So it's been over 15 years in the making. But when it first activated, I've done it very consciously. I wanted this modality. When I basically came from Christian background, I was reading, the Bible, I was studying, and I'm like, these people 2000 years ago were able to do all these wonderful things like heal and speak different languages and lay hands, and there was actual physical tangible things, and I got obsessed with this idea. My, I think, 17-year-old self got obsessed with the idea that there must be something more out there. Most of my teens I spent studying philosophical books. I was a little bit, I think, ahead of my time as a teenager when I was like, all the classic dystopian books like 1984, or the philosophical books. And for a long time, I was a very, very much of a skeptic and a disbeliever. But then through personal experience, I started having this impression there's got to be something out there. And I also actually believe that there is, that if people were able to heal and speak in tongues 2000 years ago, they're able to do it now. And I was literally so determined to find it. And as always, when we set the intention, the universe responds. So I did come across a Christian church group, actually within Catholic Church, even to make it more interesting, that were so-called charismatic. So they were doing all these kind of things like supernatural speaking light languages. And I went into a camp with them, like a summer camp, and I was like, I'm determined to come back, having some experience something transcendental, which is bigger than me. And this is how my first light language activated in my early 20s. But of course, the price I paid was being confined into the box of this particular religious group, which was telling me that this is just something you use for praying, and you're not meant to understand it unless you get a special other gift, which is the gift of translation, which I've been pursuing and pursuing and pursuing without effect. In time, I have departed from the Christian faith. I've seen lots of things that I disagree with. One of them being, I can't wrap my head around how we can be born with original sin. I literally, my skeptic mind, looking at beautiful babies, completely innocent, it's like, there was other stuff that I disagreed with, and I've departed from that. But the gift, the light language, has not switched off. It was always there. I loved it. I used it when I was nervous. I used it intuitively, very often on aircrafts during heavy turbulence. Or when I was stressed as a university student or as a budding entrepreneur, and I was using it just for myself. Wasn't much of a mystery, in a way that my parents knew, my friends knew. Some of my friends also spoke light language. It just wasn't a big deal. But it wasn't something that I was doing publicly. I had my very normal 3D career. I very early went into entrepreneurship. Under the influence of my husband, I discovered it's good to work for yourself. And then basically, until 2020, I lived a very normal, very stressed life, chasing other people's expectations and fulfilling all the, let's say, matrix commitments, until 2019, when I was already at that time meditating. I've always been spiritual all my life, whether it was in the Christian version or more, let's say, free version with kind of meditation. I've always been manifesting, and I think in 2019 I reached a point where my mind was open enough to acknowledge that maybe we're not all alone in this universe, and to start receiving messages from other realms, from other beings. And I remember very clearly, it was 2019, I was running a webinar. I lived in Australia. I moved there very recently at that time, and I was running an online business in my native Poland. And because of time difference, I think I finished work, finished delivering a class at like 3 a.m. And because I was still wired, because I had to be awake, I was kind of explaining some concepts about online business, and I was in this weird state between sleep and being awake. So I was tired. My conscious mind, I think, was still running somewhere, but my body was tired. And I fell into a weird state, which now I understand to be the fourth dimension, where all the time and space, everything runs parallel. There was no future, present, and now were happening all at the same time. And I have met a beautiful female being, which she didn't say who she was. She only said, I come from a distant planet and it's about time. And she gave me a set of instructions. She said, follow the grid, follow the blue light, and learn about sacred geometry. And I only knew she's from a cold planet. I knew nothing. It didn't surprise me, it didn't scare me. It was a very pleasant, very beautiful experience. She had a lightly blue skin, looked a bit Scandinavian. And she turned out to be an Arcturian being. And she basically, how I discovered through following one of the instructions. I started learning about sacred geometry. Actually, in that vision, in that state, I saw an exact picture of a book that I then found on Amazon about sacred geometry, but it was such dense technical reading about mathematics and music, I couldn't digest it. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go a simpler way. I'm gonna put sacred geometry in Gaia. And Matthias De Stefano's series about the, I think, what was it called, Initiation or Inception, or something like that,
Yeah.
came up, and he was explaining all the extraterrestrial races. And as soon as he started talking about Arcturians, it was all my memories started coming back. It was like, she was an Arcturian. I understand now. That's why the light blue skin. And then the more I watched that series, it was like remembering rather than learning something new. And then I was starting to contact the Arcturians. And then along the course of work with them, they said, look, you have to go and explore other galactic races. We're not the only one here in the universe. So whenever I was connecting to other races, such as the Syrians, the Pleiadians, I was always doing it with my husband, Aaron. He was always getting the visuals and information. And for me, a new light language was activating. And this is how I know how to distinguish between those energies and how to put the name to a face or the sound to a race.
Oh, that's perfectly stated. That's really, really eloquent the way that you said that. I was going to ask next, how do you find your light language? Or how
Okay.
did you anyway?
So it activates, I always say there's three ingredients. Number one is intention. It's intention to all get it activated. Number two is the presence of strong spiritual energy, something that takes us out of the here and now. And number three is the simplest, just open your mouth. Because many people think that something will take over. Thankfully, it's not like that. You're not being possessed. You should have, if it's genuine light language, you have full control over it. So it's like a tap. You don't control what you're going to say, but you control whether you turn it on or off. So how I do it when I activate light languages in people, I believe that everybody already has it. It goes off your soul galactic memories. So basically what I do is I bring the energy. That's the most difficult aspect of it, of activating the light language, because the intention, simple. You either want it or you don't. If you want it, it's available. Open your mouth is simple as long as you can get your conscious mind to shut down the natural urge to speak in your native language. If you speak multiple languages, human terms, maybe even easier for you, because you'll just kind of like, it won't feel as weird. But if you spend a whole life speaking just one, it may be like, well, I'm going to sound weird. What's going to happen? So as long as you put that conscious mind a little bit at rest, open your mouth, these two elements are simple. The most, I suppose, tricky element is to be able to bring those strong spiritual energies It could be galactic energies, it could be energies of the land. Um, and as soon as a person connects to it, they're able to express it if the soul remembers. So most of the time it runs like this. If you, let's say, were an Arcturian in your previous lifetime, you have a potential to activate Arcturian light language because it's like activating a memory. However, if you've never been an Arcturian, well, then it's a different kettle of fish because your soul has nothing to go by because you never experienced this. It's like, I live in Costa Rica at the moment, but I grew up in Poland. If someone said to me, "Oh, do you remember when we were young and when we were having coconut water?" I'm like, "No, there was no coconut water available in Poland." But if I asked that to a Costa Rican, they would be like, "Yeah, of course I remember because that's something that they live with, coconut water. We, in Poland, we probably have other stuff that they don't have here." So the same goes for light language. Light language activates off the back of what's already in you, of the back of your soul memory. So it's not a case of learning. That's why we call it activating, because it's basically just bringing the memories up to the surface.
That makes sense. So why would someone channel light language? How does it serve us?
Ah, that's a great question. And this is, that was actually a question I have been or had been asking myself for over a decade. I was like, what's the point in this light language? I even wrote an article which is what's the point in light language? Basically, because it seemed like a party trick,
Hmm.
like completely useless, but it's not. Thankfully, it's not. It's actually a very, very good tool. So basically, there's a few things that light language can do. On the simple, most basic level, it helps you raise your vibration because it connects you to something which is not here and now, which is higher dimension, and it's pure energy. Very often, when we talk in human language, our language isn't free and clear of different concepts, sometimes written with trauma, collective imprints. So, for example, if I talk to you about abundance, I've got a baggage. I've got a baggage of experiencing money trauma. I've got a baggage of losing money. I've got a baggage of losing a business. I've got a baggage of building a business. If I talk about abundance, it's my concept of abundance is ingrained with my own story as well as the collective story, because on this planet we didn't experience much abundance. There was famines, there was wars. So if I try to explain abundance in human language, it's not completely free of this load, of this burden. Now, if I start channeling abundance codes from Arcturians or Andromedans, it's free of these 3D system controlled constructs and concepts of what abundance is. So light language provides like a shortcut to things that are out of this world, to a perspective or a paradigm shift. So that's one of the things that light language can do. My favorite use for light language is as a carrier or as a medium for so-called galactic consciousness technology, which are codes and upgrades of frequencies available from various races to help us here in this 3D reality. So, a little bit like when you take your car to fine tune the engine, or maybe you put some box that will help you, I don't know, improve fuel economy or make it faster. The same way different galactic frequencies channeled in the form of light language can fine tune your energy field so that perhaps you start spotting more opportunities. And this way is how you step into more abundance. Or maybe one of my favorite codes are codes of inner healing, nicknamed by all my students as bitter medicine, because it's codes that agitate your energy field, which help people release pain and trauma and process memories and just, in essence, make peace with the past.
Wow. Yeah. So I don't know what what the term is, but if you're working with me,
Hmm.
because I see people using light language and light codes for, okay, this is an activation for, like you said, abundance or self-love or healing or physical healing. Is that it's and then like you said, excuse me, I'm a Reiki master also. So again, Reiki is simply intention.
Hmm.
I am intending that right now I'm going to scan your body. I'm going to intend that these things that are plaguing you are going to heal, and be gone and be replaced with love, light, strong immune system. Is that how you use light language with your clients
Uh, yes.
or
Uh,
friends or family?
yeah, yeah, yes, yes. In groups, precisely. Intention sets the tone. You always, for anything I do in the spiritual realm, I mean, I work a lot with energetic patterns, and light language to one of the tools in this whole spiritual toolbox. But yes, always the point of the starting point is intention, and the starting point is, what's the problem? How can we fix it? How can we find an energetic solution to this problem? And by all means, this is exactly how it works. It works with intention. Now there is another side of it where you can just, like, I call it coding or decoding the language.
Mm.
So you can code the language with intention. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go to Lyran Felines to download abundance codes. I'm going to go to Pleiadians to get those codes of bitter medicine. So I can set with my intention what I'm getting out of a particular frequency. It obeys this kind of intention and precision. And of course, it's done with a bit of manners, because it's not kind of you going to various races and you would ask them, they're always happy to share. But there is another way of using light language, which is more like decoding and in reverse. So you could let it flow and then translate what happened. And sometimes the language will be an activation, so the energy will be working. But sometimes it actually is just a story of the fall of Lemuria or a story of Orion Wars. And then the human mind deciphers the meaning of the story. Sometimes it's a mix, sometimes there is some activation as well as some story. So it's not quite like light language as a name is not fortunate, because it's more than just the language, but sometimes it does provide communication as well as energy. So hope that makes.
Right. Yeah. So I'd love to talk about providing communication. Is there a way that how do we know what the messages are that are coming? Or how
It's
would you know them?
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, no different than reading. You reading energy.
Yeah.
So you listen always with your heart, with your body. You open whatever spiritual senses you have to decipher this communication, which is an energetic communication. So it's not word for word, although I must say that more and more, when I practice with my students, people getting more and more precise messages, which leads me to believe that yes, at some point maybe we'll be able to understand it word for word, but the most effective way to understand light language is with your heart. And let's say if you have psychic gifts which are of a visual nature, I can almost guarantee that when I start speaking light language and you tune out your ears but tune in your third eye, you start seeing things.
Hmm.
So that's how you would decipher. For me, very often the meaning comes almost through my body, through my inner senses. So I start feeling it in my body. Let's say I start feeling in my high heart, and I know that there is a high heart activation going on, or I get a sense of knowing. So it boils down to those like standard, spiritual senses like clairsentience and clairaudience and clairvoyance and claircognizance. It's exactly like that. So it's almost like the meaning comes, I wouldn't say comes separately, but in order to get the meaning, you have to tune into it. You won't get it just from sound itself, you get it from energy. So it's like reading energy.
Yeah. Just like I'm a medium, and that's how I know what a soul is trying to tell me, to tell you. It is very much tuning into I'm I excel at the typically getting names and details and seeing images.
Mhm.
The hardest part is getting the message, and it's because it isn't a sentence. They don't show me things. It's more of trust. Like, okay, I'm feeling like I need to say this. I'm feeling they're wanting you to know this. I am paraphrasing. I'm not word for word. Occasionally, a spirit will give me a phrase they used just so the person knows it's them, where it's like, I don't know why I said that. And they say, well, that's because that's what they always said. But you're right. It's more of just a knowing and a trusting that, no, this
Yeah,
isn't
and the
in my
more you trust,
imagination.
the more you trust, the more you get. It's like a tap that you turn on, or
Yeah.
volume is turned up when you actually lean into it and pass that message and go over your own maybe insecurity of, am I gonna get it right?
Yep.
Is it gonna resonate? It's exactly the same with light language. There's also another interesting phenomenon that I've noticed with light language is that when there is a useful purpose for it, it's almost like it amplifies it. So I give you an example. If I start, let's say I'm walking my dog and I'm just start mumbling light language under my breath because I'm bored, or I'm in the shower and I'm starting to sing in light language, or I'm hoovering the house and I speak in light language. By the way, great way to practice light language when nobody can hear you.
Yeah.
These three examples is if your light language activated, you feeling self-conscious, do it when there is background noise, go to the beach when there is crashing waves, or do it when you hoover in the house. It's not some kind of sacred tool to be put on pedestal. You can use it. But let's say I'm doing it in this way. 9 times of 10, I will not get the meaning because I'm already occupied with something else. I'm not putting attention to it, and this language is just for me. Now, if I put myself out there, let's say I'm holding a group class or some group activation or individual session with a client, the meaning will always come, no matter what. It will just unlock. And I believe in general with our spiritual abilities, they people think that they need to master them before they actually put themselves out there um, to start, let's say, practicing or offering services. I think that they grow the more we serve. When I was holding my first free light language class, I think it was in 2020, uh, I remember I just started holding it because I was only doing marketing for my husband and I was doing market research. What do people need? And I saw this question about light language. And there was a question, but there weren't many meaningful answers. And I thought, people need to know about this. I can hold a class. And I stepped up. I was like, I'm going to hold a free class about light language. From the moment I announced that free class to the moment when the class actually took place, two more light languages activated in me because I actually put myself out there, even though, I wasn't at that time a specialist or an expert in the subject. But I thought, I'll take it. I can do it. And I feel the same happens with other spiritual senses. It's just the more kind of way that we've been conditioned is that first we need to have it all done, tick the boxes, get some diploma, get approved, and only then we can actually put ourselves out there. Whereas I feel like those spiritual senses, they just grow with use, basically.
Hmm. And how do you know when you have um, acquired or activated a new light language? Does it sound different? Does it feel different?
Sounds and feels different, different energy, totally different sound. Some of them sound a little bit similar to one another, but some of them are vastly different. So I'm happy to give some samples if
Yeah, if you feel, yeah, if you would like to, I would love that.
yeah. So I give you some striking examples of things that sound totally different. So my favorite, my first and original light language is Arcturian. Arcturian light language sounds very much Middle Eastern. It sounds like Arabic. So again, I invite you if you want to open your
Yeah,
spiritual senses.
yeah,
Maybe there'll be a message there for you.
yeah.
And I encourage the listeners to do the same. So I'm just going to start speaking in Arcturian. Malhetela buhetia haretarach nahish urachtia hia mua heshturuhutara kia mea aria halleti kuhatara mushtura hia helemane kiahu. Mei kia hatara hi ku maa hardehera sikatara shukuru mea amahaletia ham. Mekia hatera huturu shukara hetia hatala hetera mune ahasha kia sa. Mea hasharehetia haredia halamurahatea huria shahasihataраha. So that's Arcturian.
That's beautiful.
Any kind of sensations, impressions, feelings,
No,
messages?
just warmth at this point. Yeah. And I wonder what the listeners will feel.
I'm more than happy to provide a translation because I
Yeah.
always believe that it's better and more secure when people actually understand what's going on. So this was like almost like a call, I would say call to arms, but it was reminding people of their own power. And the message in this transmission was to stand up tall. I almost felt like I was being pulled upwards with
Yeah.
my back being straight, and it was like a collective message. Just remember your own power, stand up tall, rise up.
Yeah.
That was the gist of it, of this language. So that's Arcturian. It sounds remotely human. That doesn't sound
Yeah.
too out there. I mean, Aaron and I, we both speak Arcturian, and we always, whenever we travel to Middle East, we're thinking like, if we just now start speaking between one another, they'll just think it's another dialect of
Yeah.
Arabic because sounds like that. It doesn't, obviously the sounds are similar, but the words aren't. But it's that kind of vibe. Now, I'll give you a different example, which still sounds a bit more human, but different. So the Arcturian had a lot of guttural sounds. I'll give you another beautiful language, which is Lyran Avian. These beings are winged beings that if we saw one of them, they don't look that different to us humans. We have very similar DNA. The only thing that we haven't got, we've lost our wings, and they still have their beautiful angel-like wings. And the language has the essence of freedom. That's the biggest value of Lyran Avian civilization is freedom, creativity, and expression. I think we need a bit more of this on Earth. So if you allow me, I'm
Yes,
more than happy
please.
to share some Lyran Avian with you. Kia sikutiu marialati kurusu ke yamare ke la turu kutiasa kari minu nura sarietar shuru kere kia motu kura nia aritia mu meia kahi kulu kuria nema asikatu shukaria mene asatia kuya kia mutu tia sikara letiu mea kaya mea shuya kia sikaturu literia sakara mikuru suria nera ori te shutu kameata sikuru iata seyata shuria kasakitia murushu.
Yeah, different, still beautiful.
This was actually opening your ears, a kind of activation, as in spiritual senses, like to hear the messages, to be more attuned to the messages from the universe. I felt it around my ears.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is the example of I'm not setting any intention. I'm just letting it flow
Yeah.
and whatever. So these still sound normal kind of thing. Now, the challenge is that there are also light languages that sound nothing like human languages. And when people spontaneously, because light language can spontaneously activate, all of a sudden people's memories activate. When they spontaneously activate those, they get very self-conscious. They feel like, oh my God, this is weird. This is not like light language I heard on YouTube, because everything you hear out there in meditations is all these beautiful languages. But there are languages that sound more wacky, like Blue Avian or Orion or Andromedan. I'll give you Andromedan, which sounds a bit more like, let's say, out of this world. A lot of repeated sounds. I think the language is tonal, so to our ears it seems samey, but to theirs it doesn't. So Andromedans are beautiful. I mean, or maybe the Andromedans I connect with because it's a whole wide galaxy out there. Are beautiful beings who are elemental, elf-like. They have like a eco utopia on the planet, and their language sounds something like that. So if you speak that, that's like, oh, this is weird, this is
Yeah.
strange. But I wanted to give you samples of different ones just so you get like a gist of, well, it doesn't always have to sound like human language. Sometimes it can sound a bit more wacky and it's still a light language.
Thank you so much. I think that was really important to demonstrate to really get an idea of what light languages are or what light language is. And I also wanted to talk about star seeds. What
Mhm.
is a star seed?
So a starseed is a soul who had extraterrestrial experiences before the terrestrial experiences. But I think more technically, we all had
Yeah.
some experiences outside of this planet. So, in my opinion, what makes the starseed is the starseed kind of contract or the soul contract, what means that immediately before this earthly incarnation, a starseed would have volunteered for mission Earth because we are, as a soul, when we're going through our soul trajectory, this kind of wheel of experiences where we play all roles to have the most rounded kind of experience as a soul, we're almost like, I would say, randomly assigned by the Akashic algorithm, but we are assigned based on trauma and karmic bonds and patterns, and also for us to experience the most wide array of soul experiences. With Starseed Contract, there was almost like a little bit of a alteration or intervention in this natural order of things where certain souls could hear a call from our own planet Gaia, not so much from any being, but the planet itself sent a call out round about the time when we were going through the Second World War and later on the atomic bomb explosions, which were like, help, something here is going amiss. This planet needs some help and a high level of consciousness, otherwise we just gotta destroy ourselves. And many souls, in different galaxies far far away, and in this galaxy, in the Milky Way, have heard this call and were like, yeah, I'll come to Earth, and maybe I've been there before in other lifetimes, maybe there will be a chance to dissolve some karma and learn some new lessons, but I am volunteering for this kind of for this Earth mission. And basically all these souls have been like, the consciousness was extracted, aka they died on the planet to that lifetime to be born here on planet Earth. And I feel like that's what makes starseeds, is the kind of mission brief, the fact that we've come here to bring a new level of consciousness, which we already seeing emerging because the planet itself, Gaia, supports this kind of new wave of consciousness. We're becoming more aware. If we look at how, yes, we still have a lot of, let's say, malice, but 90% of that is government engineered, like wars that people feel disconnected from, uh, the kind of drama that majority of people don't want to participate in. But if we look at the general progress in the last 50 or 100 years, we are really heading in the right direction. Things like animal rights, things as us being more accepting to different expressions of love. Not that long ago, we didn't think that animals had any kind of anything to say. We were penalizing gay people. We are moving in the right direction. It's a slow progress. So I think that the consciousness of the planet is rising, and starseeds have a role to play. But of course, we all have a role to play. And a lot of us are starseeds without even knowing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's something that we really need to hear right now. It's such a dark, dark time.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things that have happened that are dark, but I think we really do need that hope that things are going to shift
Mm-hmm.
away from that. And I pray that that's true. And
Yeah.
I would love to just sort of ask you a general question because you really answered what I was about to ask you, but just what do you want people to know, and what's sort of an overlying message that you would like to share? You just shared something beautiful, but what else in sort of summation and conclusion would you want people to know?
Ah, great question. I was doing this exercise just before our podcast with my students, and I asked them the same question. If you had one important message to pass to your beloved client or your potential kind of valued customer, because it was a marketing class, like 5D marketing class, what would you share? What would be your message that you would shout from the rooftop? Well, my message is always one message, one and the same. It just comes in different iterations. Light language is just like, a small aspect of it, but the general message that I want every single human being to get is that we are the architects of our destiny. That's the name of my company, is the Architects of Destiny, because I believe that we create reality from inside out. So yes, we are here on this whole spaceship suspended in this galaxy called Earth, and we are traveling to a certain destination. There's certain big forces at play that we cannot control individually, but collectively, we all have a part to play. And it starts with you realizing just how powerful you are, that there are things that you can do, that there are energetic tools available for you to start healing your pain and trauma, to start shedding all this density, all this heavy burden that we've all been through, because life here on this planet is challenging, as we all know. Maybe it was something that happened in your childhood, maybe even something ancestral that is keeping you feeling less than happy. You did not come here to suffer, you came here to thrive. And it starts with you actually realizing how powerful you are and how many tools you've got at your disposal to start shifting your reality from inside out.
Thank you so much, Ria. That was beautiful. And what do you have coming up? What are you teaching? Do you have workshops or anything you want to share? I'll have your website link below, but feel free to tell us about anything you'd like to share.
I have a couple of things. There is something that I've been teaching for the last 3 years. It's a consciousness development school, mostly aimed at starseeds and lightworkers, called the Quantum Club. It's a membership where we hold weekly classes. So if you are intrigued by light language, by all these kind of extraterrestrial connections, this is something we explore every single week. We connect to various races. You can discover more about your gifts and abilities. So it's literally been going on for 3 years. We meet every single week. So you get live classes and you get recordings of an ever growing library, which now spans something like 160 sessions. So it's like a kind of smorgasbord of all things spiritual, all things star seeds, light language, Akashic records, all these cool abilities. So that's my membership. But what I'm also starting in July is my annual program called Radiance, which is aimed at spiritual entrepreneurs, because I feel like a lot of ways of running a business, promotion, marketing, sales, has been taught in a way that just doesn't fit with spiritual businesses. It's like we are sensitive people, so are our clients, and I feel like trying to push us into these 3D formulas of how to sell and how to market simply doesn't work. So I've developed a 6 month program, mostly aimed at personal brands, conscious entrepreneurs, and spiritual entrepreneurs in particular, to teach you both the energetics and the mechanics of running a business that feels good on the soul and of course is still prosperous. So these are the two things that I'm currently focusing on, and it's my absolute pleasure to share this. I'm very passionate about both subjects.
Oh, wonderful. And what is your website, just in case someone is visually impaired and won't see it there? What is your website address?
RiyaLoveguard.com. So Riya spelled Riya, Loveguard like love and
Mhm.
God.com. RiyaLoveguard.com.
Thank you so much, Ria Loveguard. This has been so wonderful, and I know that people will find it very enlightening.
You are most welcome, and thank you so much for the invite.